Char Margolis, Char Communications Incorporated, and CharVision LLC do not endorse or offer for any purpose but entertainment the views of any guest or other expert on CharVision or UBN.
I knew things before they happened from the time I was a child. At the age of 8, I saw a spirit at the foot of my bed and didn't know what it was. And in my 20s, I finally realized I had a special ability that could help others. I have learned that love never dies. There is a spirit world that can communicate with us, and we all have the gift of intuition. Join me, and together we will explore the possibilities of the unknown from beyond and more. This is CharVision. Hey everybody, it's Char and Sunny, and we're so excited because today I have a master Kung Fu person. He's called a Kung Fu master, and his name is Sifu Matthews. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's so I read about some of how you got into this, and I want you to let everybody know how you did this, but you were really in pain and sick at one time, weren't you?
Mm-hmm. I would say not so much sick, but having had a lot of injuries.
Yeah, injuries I meant.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes,
so
I had
what?
Quite a few intense injuries.
So I mean, you had some like crazy injuries. So
yeah,
like ligaments and then you are able to help people with electromagnetic energy and healing, right?
Yeah.
I'm fascinated with this, and I can't wait to hear about it, of what you do. But first, tell us a little bit about how you got into being a Kung Fu master.
Okay. So, I started in the martial arts when I was 3 years old.
Oh.
Yeah. I've been doing it for well over 4 decades. And something that I've been doing very consistently. So it's been a major part of my life.
Right.
And in the process of doing the martial arts, I became very, very attuned or sensitive to how electromagnetic fields were moving, which is something that it's discussed in a lot of the, like Chinese martial arts will talk about it because they do have the healing, they do have the qi, they do have all of that type of, call it a science.
Right.
But I had a very different experience with it when I was a kid, in that I was becoming like hyper sensitive to what was happening in engagements between people. So even when I was probably 6 years old and I was like wrestling on the judo mat and we were choking each other, I remember I was very aware of like people's bodies. Like that was hot, that's cold, that's damp, that's this. And I didn't understand what it was until I started following it. I started realizing like, well, if somebody's hot, that means that I can always move them in a certain direction.
Right.
And so I started to over, I'll say many, many years, put that into a language that actually is the science of how electromagnetic fields are moving. Meaning like if someone has a damp area in the body, it means they're going to be slow, congested, sick, as if you were like walking in a marsh. If you were in a marsh and it was damp, you'd have more mosquitoes, you'd have that happening in your body.
Right.
So we have these things happening all the time in our body, and we have the capacity to move them. So the martial arts became for me more about like, well, not so much how do I exploit that person's weakness, which I learned very well, but it became about how do I heal that weakness.
Oh.
How does that person learn about what that actually means, that they're in a martial arts room, they're aggressive, their body is hot. Why don't they learn how to cool it down before they even get into that? So that you can learn how to take it to a whole other level.
Oh.
So it's really about, what I'm talking about is a science of human interaction, in a sense that we battle like all the time, whether it's relationships or trying to heal something within ourselves where we want to create a new persona and we're struggling. And whatever level that is, there's always a negotiation, I call it a forces of electromagnetic forces.
Right.
Like if you want to heal a pattern, well, you have the old pattern you have to fight against. And if you're in a relationship,
old bad habits.
The old bad habits are patterns. They're literally like electromagnetic patterns, and there's a battle. So what I'm doing now is using the forces that I learned how to manipulate from martial arts and my own investigation of how electromagnetism works, putting it into a scientific format, which actually I'm going to be doing some studies at a hospital in on healing, on what I do. And so putting in a language that people could really understand it. I can't give the actual name, but I'll tell you that it's a pretty big thing. Like I'm really excited about it. And it's because I'm putting this into a language that people can understand.
And you're also a healer.
That is what I
Okay,
do.
but
I am a healer.
You are a healer.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us though what you had wrong with you and how
Sure.
your disability, or it wasn't a disability.
No,
but,
not a disability.
but how you were all messed up with your body.
Yeah. So I was very hyperactive when I was a kid, as well. Okay, and had a lot of tough times. I would say. I was drinking when I was 9, and
Alcohol?
I was drinking alcohol when I was 9. And I quit when I was 22.
Yikes.
Yeah. So that was one. I would say that was one area. But I'd broken a lot of bones. I had a lot of injuries, and it was not from the martial arts. A lot of it was from playing sports. Like I played some sports in college and in high school, and I had some really serious injuries. Like shattered my ankle twice. Had surgery
Yikes.
on it. The doctor, when I was very little, before I knew how to do what I was doing,
Right.
doctor cut the nerves, left me with a major issue. Probably like 14 years I had pain in it every day. 2 knee surgeries that did not go well.
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
You know what? You don't need to tape this because we'll give you a tape when
I'm just
we're
taping
done.
pieces of it,
Oh, okay.
not the whole thing.
Okay, not to worry. Okay, go on.
Okay. So the knee, and then basically, there was just a whole host of things. I shattered one of my fingers, the wrist, and the body was not functioning well. So
Right.
by the time I was in my, I'd say mid to late 20s, the body was miserable, and it was not responding. So I was doing all types of therapies and modalities, and nothing was working.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So how did you figure out how to heal these things?
Well, from what I mentioned earlier about using the martial arts to understand how to channel force,
Right.
like how forces move, and then spending time. I had already been working with people, healing them for a long time, and I had not figured out how to get my body to change. So I started to actually really listen very, very deeply and look at like what.
Do you
was
feel you were
missing.
guided?
Oh, always, of course.
And where do you feel like you're getting your information
Well,
from, or your guidance?
I say, anyways, my guidance comes from my heart. That's always like what I say, as far as like whatever's there, I'm aware of it through my heart. So my connection to how electromagnetic fields move, I just listen very, very deeply. And the body tells me what's going on. My heart tells me what's going on. I'm aware of like how the
So
patterns
you're
move.
guided.
Oh, of course. Yeah,
We're
absolutely,
all guided.
absolutely.
But we don't always
Absolutely.
listen.
I listen now.
Yeah.
I really listen
You
now.
have to, but
Yeah.
but if you had torn ligaments,
Yeah.
So it's like a miraculous kind of healing.
Well, my
that
stuff,
happened.
if you take a look at like my track record, I have pretty much miracles. I would say they're scientific miracles, but every single
Right.
day. So I have people who come to me who sometimes heal in 2 minutes or 3 minutes, who've been born with like congenital defects. I have people who sometimes are born with feet like this. They've never moved their toes in their life, and they'll heal in 2 minutes on camera. I film it all the time. I have a lot of that, like a lot of really interesting stuff where partial paralysis, nerve damage. Sometimes I can turn it back on, like the nerve on in like a couple of minutes.
right.
It depends on what's going on in their electrical field and what's holding them back from healing.
It's pretty fascinating to me
Yeah.
because I personally believe the medicine of the future is electromagnetic
Sure.
medicine.
Yeah.
I truly
Yeah.
believe that.
Yeah.
And have you ever worked on a skio machine?
I've not. No.
Okay. Or a Rife machine?
I've been around them in the past. Like I've had practitioners that I've trained and people that I've worked with or healed that have used them in the past. So I've
Right.
felt them. I'm aware of them and very sensitive to it. Yeah, very aware of it.
Yeah, because I've been on a skio machine. In fact, I had a CD made to balance chakras,
Sure.
and the composer was also a healer
Got it.
and worked with the skio machine, and he composed the music on the same energy level, the electromagnetic energy level
Got it.
of the de-stress cycle.
Sure.
So when people listen to the CD, they either
Yeah.
feel like $1 million or they fall asleep.
Yeah. yeah, it's totally.
But it sounds to me like you have found a way to harness electromagnetic energy, the fields of it on your own with the healing that you do.
Yes, and I'm doing something. What's very interesting is I'm actually teaching people how to do it by the position and the direction of the body.
Right.
So what I think is not understood a lot, which I'm wanting to explain, and it's part of my message in getting out there and speaking a lot and doing large groups, is explaining like there's no accident in how this works. So whatever level the healing takes place, I always tell people, doesn't matter if it comes from some kind of a homeopathic
You know what?
remedy.
I hate to interrupt you, but please put your camera down. You're making me nervous. Yeah. Okay, go on.
She films that, I guess, for the media, so you can see it. So it goes live on Facebook, and then a lot of
Okay,
people
and
see
that's
the
great,
video
and
later.
we'll have this
Okay.
on Facebook Live, and we'll have it on everything. So I just appreciate it. I mean, you've done a lot of taping and filming, and really, it's
all good.
it's making me nervous. So, okay, Tony, can you like?
Yeah, I got the time codes.
Yeah, you do. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
So going back to like how we use our bodies specifically to move electricity and particles, literally particles, is how we heal. So whenever people heal, whether it's like acupuncture or whether it's that you end up stretching something, if it really heals, like if there's a real change in the body, it's because the electromagnetic fields change, they feed the body, and then they give the body minerals through that cycle. So if that doesn't happen, it doesn't change. And that's kind of like, I'm very fundamental. So when we move, we change our position, we change our direction, and what that does is it changes how we interact with the electromagnetic fields. It's very, very simple, but you kind of have to understand it. So there's like a map, a guidance map to it.
How did you get your nickname? Sifu.
The injury, well, actually, it was the injury whisperer is the nickname, but Sifu is from.
Oh wait. Okay,
Yeah.
so you're the injury whisperer.
Yeah.
And where do you practice?
I practice all over. I'm in
Okay,
Los
but-
Angeles, New York City.
Okay, but in an
now.
office
Yeah.
or in your home or
Office. I have an office.
and you have an office in
West LA,
West LA.
and then in New York also.
And how can people get a hold of you?
They get a hold of me through my website, which is themartialartsofwellness.com.
Okay.
And you could email me as well through that
Okay,
site.
the Marshall. Do you have that up? Okay, thanks, Tony.
Yeah.
Okay, and so your nickname then is the injury whisperer.
Yeah, I go by that. That's what, if you look on the internet, that's generally what you'll see.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so tell us some of the things that you've done to heal people.
Okay. So, I work a lot with athletes. I've worked with some professional athletes.
Okay.
And I work a lot on, basically everything. A lot of people come to me with things that are either considered unhealable or they've tried everything and they've had no result. I've worked on dogs who couldn't walk, like German Shepherds I work on a fair amount, who can't walk, and then I help them walk.
Well,
really
that's
fast
pretty
usually.
amazing.
I had a dog last week who had a stroke, who he was he couldn't see out of one eye. He was banging into walls. He couldn't walk straight. He was dizzy. And then I video everything so you can see the before and after.
Right.
And then after one session,
You guys like to video.
video everything. I have to video everything. You can't. I've learned this lesson. Like, I've seen some incredible things, and all of a sudden, like, they were not
Right.
recorded, and I was like, I'll never see that again. And
Right.
I feel like people really need to see what you're doing because they have to realize it's real,
Right.
and people get inspired by it. So I
Right.
don't want people to miss something that's authentic.
I understand
and-
that because it's hard to believe unless you've seen it.
yeah.
I mean, even in in everyday life now, if somebody steals something from somebody's front porch, it's on a video.
That's right.
And then
That's
you can
right.
find who
That's right.
that it's real and who did it.
It's true.
So I don't blame you for doing that. That makes
Yeah.
good sense. So
Yeah.
people can experience what you have to do and say. But I don't know that I know anyone else that does healing the way you do it.
No, it's definitely I would say it's a calling in a sense because
Right.
it's coming through the martial arts, which is really to train people how to be in control of their forces. Like,
Right.
it's not about the fighting. People don't realize martial arts is like a way of creating. So you're really like channeling power and creating shapes and forms that you would use to create balance. So whether it's in your body or whether it's in a martial situation, you're really learning how to channel energy.
Right.
So it's a real discipline. At
Right.
the same time, it has this specialized understanding of like micro movement, really small stuff. As you know from the work you do, it's very subtle. It always has to be subtle in a sense because the body is very subtle. So it appears gross. And, that goes back to the nickname, the injury whisperer. People sometimes would be like, well, how did that heal? Like I'll have someone sometimes, I'm trying to think, like I would say a couple of months back, I was in North Carolina and I was teaching a group and there was this little boy who he had an arm that I guess when he was born, it was crushed. When he came out of the uterus, it was crushed. And he had no fine motor movement and it was kind of twisted like this and he couldn't close his fingers. And so I did the group and then I was looking at them after, the mom and the son. I said, do you guys want help with something? She's like, yeah, would you try and do something with this? I said, sure, yeah. So he had 2 surgeries on this. He'd been through physical therapy.
Right.
She basically said, we're done, like we've given up on it. So it healed in 20 minutes, like to the point where he actually beforehand could not hold a cup for more than like probably 30 seconds because he couldn't hold it. So after he was holding it for minutes, he actually was able to button his shirt after, and then like the arm was moving completely, whereas he had no motion in it.
Have you ever worked with anyone who was paralyzed or who had neck injuries?
Oh, yeah.
And were you able to help them get mobility or?
I've had some that I have. So like there have been people that I've had some partial paralysis, like where people have had fingers that didn't work. I've had success with that. It really depends on the situation, because I've also had cases where people can't take it or they're not ready to heal or there's a lot of reasons, like.
Well, sometimes I believe that some physical things are caused by emotional
100%.
things, and people hang on to them.
100%.
And they don't let go of it.
100%.
So it's psychological in some ways.
100%.
So how do you get them to release that?
Okay, so when I typically work on anyone, I'm working with the electrical field. So I will talk to them. If I feel there's a problem, I tell them why. I'm like, listen, this is why this happened. This is what's going on in there. And someone I worked on recently, probably a couple of days ago, he had a back problem. Okay, just he's like, my back's been out for so many years and the nerves were pinched. And I looked at it for a second. I said, look, your biggest issue is your masculinity. So your biggest issue is how you move your power through the whole lower part of your body. I said, your kidneys are not working right either. He's like, well, you know what? I have testicle pain all the time. And I said, it's all related. And I said, also, there's all kinds of problems in that part. And I said, this goes back to your childhood. I didn't get into all the details, but I was very clear and I could feel it that it's not working right because it's not moving. So he has to rebuild the power in that area. He has to shift himself. He has to work on both putting the energy back in that needs to be there, then opening it, then training him. How does he go forward in his life using that properly? Because it has a use, right?
And do you ever pick up intuitively about, let's say someone is injured or they're having a reaction to an allergy?
Sure.
Because a lot of people have allergies
yeah.
and it settles in their bodies somewhere.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. 100%. I mean, if we sit long enough and really listen, as you know, you can hear a lot. I mean, you're gonna hear, if you sit quietly and you listen, you're gonna hear and you're gonna feel a lot. And a lot of my own injuries that did heal were mind blowing to me.
Right.
Mind blowing. Like to the point where, you sit with something that's been bothering you for 20 years. I had a stress fracture in my left foot. Okay, very very painful, and I was teaching about 4 or 5 years ago, and I was standing up, and I was like, this thing feels like it's cracked in half, and I gotta stop, because normally I'm pretty tough. I'll move right through it. Okay, so I went back to my hotel, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do what I'm teaching. I'm gonna sit there for a while. I'm gonna rewire the bone. I'm gonna go in electrically. I'm gonna pull the energy field out.
Okay, so you do this with your mind?
I do it with my heart and my mind and my fingers. Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of heart. I say. Yeah.
Okay, now we're getting to the nitty gritty of what
Sure.
you really do.
Yeah.
It's the way you heal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you use your heart, your mind,
And my body.
and your body.
Yeah. And then your body, and then what I would say most importantly, the big piece is the surrounding electrical fields that are trying to interact with the body, that the body knows what it needs. So it's less of me. It's more of just, can I be that kind of middle conduit, like the bridge,
Right.
that knows what to do, though? Like,
And to get into it.
yeah, and specifically, like really specific.
Right.
So I learned that as a healer, I always give this analogy, right? If let's say you hurt yourself or you know, you have an injury in your back and you decide, oh my God, nothing's working, I'm going to go have surgery. Okay, which
Right.
generally I don't recommend at all. But let's say you had to do it. So are you going to go to the surgeon that like picks his hand up and just kind of prays and waves his scalpel around and decides
Right.
to throw it somewhere? Or do you want to go to the guy who knows exactly where to go and what
Right.
to do? So healing's the same in a way, because when you start getting into like high levels of energy, and it's high levels of intense energy to move something, but you're being very precise, it's very, very specific. So it's really about the specificity, the position, the direction.
Well, it's kind of like surgery.
It is surgery.
It's
100%.
kind of like,
yeah.
It's kind of like what they used to call. There was a name for that kind of surgery.
I know what
years
you're
ago.
talking about. I forget what it's called.
I forgot what it. Tony, do you remember what it's called? I don't remember what it's called. But even when somebody goes in with some kind of operation where they're doing it remotely,
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of what you're doing, but with your energy. And
Yeah.
how do you replenish your own energy?
That's a great question, and that's something that I really work with people and athletes, talking to them about how we have to do this on a regular basis. So I spend hours replenishing my energy.
You have to.
I do, and I train many hours. So like at night, I go into silence. I don't talk. I have certain practices I do where I'm reabsorbing energy and electricity, and I hold it in my bones, and I move it through my blood, and I move it through my heart. And I have protocols, like very strict protocols I do when I'm done working with someone, how I clean my energy field, like multiple times a day.
You
I
have
clean-
to.
You have to.
Because people have energetic baggage,
Oh, major.
and
Yeah.
it can latch on
It's
to
very
you.
dangerous.
See, you're
Yeah.
very pure.
Mm-hmm.
You're very sincere, and you're very pure. You need to be careful of other energies that will try to take advantage
Sure.
of your goodness.
Sure.
You know that, right?
I'm very aware. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for reflecting that back, because I'm very aware of, thankfully, having the martial arts background.
Right.
But very, very fierce.
But you're
and strong.
beyond the martial arts background. You have a real gift.
Mhm.
I can tell. And I've met a lot of people in my life who have real gifts. But I've also met sometimes I always say the first true love is self-love.
Sure.
Doesn't mean you're selfish. It means your needs matter.
Yeah.
And that you always have to take care of you first.
Sure.
When you go on an airplane, they say, what do they say?
Oh yeah.
They
the
say
oxygen
put
mask,
your
of course.
put your mask on before you put
That's
the other
right.
person's
That's
mask
right.
on.
That's right.
So I feel, I don't know if you've experienced this in your life already. Have you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Majorly.
big time.
Big time.
Because you're,
Big time.
what sign are you?
I stopped kind of following that a long time ago. I always tell
When's your
people I'm
birthday?
every sign.
Oh, okay.
In a sense of like,
Well, because you're universal.
Yeah, I
You're
feel-
universal energy.
you know what I feel? It's really interesting. I feel like, based on what I'm teaching people about how to hold energy and literally rebirth themselves
Mm-hmm.
from understanding in a very simple way, there's so many things that I've experienced. They're so far beyond the scope of like
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
whatever I was.
I can tell.
pigeonholed that
I
I'm
can
just
tell
like,
you can do magical things.
Mm.
I can tell that. Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah, really, really interesting. And how can people get a hold of you again?
You can go to the website, which is themartialartsofwellness.com.
themartialartsofwellness.com.
And you can email me directly through there. And I
Okay.
also have a lot of videos online. So the Facebook page is Martial Arts of Wellness on Facebook.
Okay.
And I do a lot of sample things where I'll put out videos to teach people, so they're on the site. So if people want to start learning, I teach.
So you teach?
I do, yeah.
And do you teach like seminars online?
I do online.
And people can sign up for those?
Mostly now, you can buy the programs on my website.
Okay.
I do some online seminars. I do a lot of in-person stuff, so I travel constantly.
Right.
And
You're always traveling.
I'm traveling a lot. Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm LA based, but
Mm-hmm.
I've been back and forth almost like every 8 days for the past few months between New York and LA.
Have you ever found anybody that does similar things to what you do, like the people from India or?
Well, it's interesting. I've met some of the high-ranking Chinese masters.
Right.
They're always in the martial world. They're always very kind of intrigued by the format that I was putting it into, because they were like, we've not seen that before. It's like kind of a new interpretation, I would say, of Eastern and Western.
Right.
Of like how do we explain all these years of like the Indian philosophies and their
Right.
healing, and then how do we explain in a way that's so scientific that every doctor just goes, okay, I get it, and I'm going to be quiet and listen. And there's a level that intrigues me about that, because I want both systems to be able to communicate with each other, and I want people to understand, like, look, this is the body. It follows laws that are, I will say, divine laws or universal science laws. They have laws. It follows the law. And if you understand that law, which is totally perfect science, it's going to heal better. If you violate the law, you're going to have a hard time.
Well, I completely agree with you, because I personally use Eastern and Western medicine for healing.
Yeah.
Especially
Yes.
because I do energy work.
There you go.
And when we do energy work, we have to make sure we're cleansed and that
Sure.
we're protected. Do you do
Yeah.
protection prayers?
Yeah. Yeah,
to
I
make
have
sure
a lot of
there's
a lot
no
of,
trickster energies or
a lot-
anything
a
trying
lot
to get
of-
in around you?
A lot. And honestly, it's something that I will say I've been warned about in the past about being careful, because like I'll do large groups of people, a lot of people, and I now know, I'm very careful about it now, like way more than I used to be.
And do you also intuitively get like nutritional
Oh, yeah.
things for people?
Generally I say this. I feel I'm very in touch with what I'm feeling when I'm connecting to somebody. And so if I take my time and really focus on it, I can pick up what's needed in the
Right.
moment to get them through.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. How are you when you're staying in hotel rooms, since you're traveling so much?
Usually good. I like to clean things when I go in, so I try to pay attention to where I'm at, like what's going on with the energy fields there, because I feel like energy fields are so intense in general. If you just pay attention to them, which obviously, based on your work, I'm sure you're dealing with it in a very subtle level.
I live on a vortex
There
in
you
Michigan.
go. Okay.
And I also have these machines that balance electrical energy
Sure. Yeah.
to make sure everything's balanced and no wires get to the
Yeah.
house, or like
Yeah.
telephone wires or electrical wires
Sure.
or
Yeah.
things like that. I mean, I'm very aware of all that.
Sure. It's important.
And so you're aware of it
Very
as well.
much. Very much.
It's good.
Very
It's
much.
important for
Yeah.
you to
Yeah.
be that. Yeah. And is there anyone you look up to? Is there anyone who does healing that you look up to?
I would say that I've been inspired by various teachers just over the years that have taught me different things, not so much related to the healing as much as the martial arts, but wherever I learn from, I really respect it. I feel blessed to do what I do, like extremely blessed, and I feel like every single day that I'm working with anybody, I'm literally learning from.
Have you written a book yet?
I've not, no.
Are you planning to?
Absolutely, yeah. I like to write, so I just haven't had time. Been so busy. I've been kind of doing more videos, like to get them out, but I will definitely put out some books in the near future. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would probably be really good for you to help others help themselves with
Sure.
what you're doing, if that's possible. I mean,
yeah.
because
Yeah, that's the goal really is, what I've done is I've simplified this, where I have a lot of people I've worked on. I would say like thousands and thousands of people. And I'll have people sometimes email me where I'll just give them the system, okay? Basically, the system teaches you stand north, stand south, stand east, stand west, and do these positions, okay? So if you want to heat the body, do this position. If you want to cool it down, do this. If you can't sleep, do that. It's like a map I'm giving people. I've had people call in saying, like, this has completely changed my life, literally because why?
I believe you.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
believe you. And have you worked in China
Not yet, no.
I
have plans.
I have a
though.
feeling you're
Oh,
going
no,
to.
you're correct
I
about
have a
that,
feeling
yeah.
you're going to do some stuff in
Sure.
China.
Yeah, I'd love
And
to.
I think that would probably be really interesting for you and good for you.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I feel that.
It was
Like, I
kind of
feel
like a
it.
flash that came in my head. Oh my God, this guy's going to be in China. Yeah. So
Definitely
this is good.
part of the plan. Yeah.
And when you travel, do you travel alone?
For the most part, yes.
Yeah.
Usually I do. Yeah. Sometimes I'll have an assistant come with me, or someone to help out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And did your parents recognize your gifts?
There was some recognition of it, I would say.
But you were like an ADHD kid, or
I was wild. You're
yeah,
picking it
crazy
up.
wild,
You're picking it
right?
up. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was wild.
yeah,
Like, and then I would say that there was like there was this inherent sweetness. As much as I was like wild, there was an inherent sweetness, and there also was this very sensitive awareness that was
Right.
was hidden by the damage. So because I was drinking when I was so little, because there was crazy.
How did you get alcohol when you were 9? We got to go back to that
this
for a
is like,
second.
You know, this was through like the Jewish tradition.
Oh,
So it was around.
L'chaim.
It was around.
It was.
Yeah, it was around.
It was Manischewitz.
Yeah, it was well harder than Manischewitz. It was hard stuff.
Oh,
But it was, on all the ritual services on
Right.
the Sabbath, there's always,
Right.
you can always get
There's
your hands
always
on
wine.
something, and then it's in the house, and then there's alcohol. So if you want an outlet and you're having a hard time as a child, well, that was
well,
the
that's
outlet,
an
right?
interesting way for the trickster energies to get a hold of someone who could
Sure.
heal a lot of people.
Sure, it makes sense.
Yeah, because I always find that people who are really truly gifted, the trickster energies try to get in their way to stop the goodness from happening.
It makes sense.
I have an analogy that I always say. To cover a coat of black paint, it takes 10 coats of white.
Right.
So goodness has to work a
Right.
lot closer, a lot harder.
Yeah.
To cover a coat of white paint, it only takes 1 coat of black.
Right.
Negative is easy.
Yeah. It's true. It's
Well,
true.
You're very sweet.
Thank you.
Yeah. God bless you. Thank you so much
Thank
for being
you for the
here.
opportunity. I
Oh my God,
appreciate it
it's
very
so my
much. Yeah.
pleasure. I
Yeah.
hope you'll come back again.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Take good care. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, everybody, that's it for now. I want to thank Sifu Matthews and everybody else I've talked to today, and I wish you a wonderful week. And remember, intuition will take you places logic never could. God bless you. Be well.